Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Janarajana Yasodanandana Braja Janarajana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Shri Radha Damodar ki jai. Okay, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today is actually the appearance of Sri Radha Kund, and also Bahulastami. So I thought before reading the Bhagavatam, I would kind of touch on read about these different holy days, holy events that happen on this day. Okay, so the appearance of Radha Kund is commonly referred to as Bahulastami. Bahulastami is a beautiful pastime wherein the cow, Bahula, takes shelter of Krishna. Okay, so the story is as follows. On the bank of Krishna Kund in Vrindavan are deities of a cow and her calf, a brahmana, a tiger, and Krishna, all of which remind pilgrims of the beautiful pastime of Bahula. Once the cow, Bahula, was peacefully grazing when a tiger attacked her. Bahula requested the tiger to allow her to return to her calf, feed it, and bid it farewell before it made a meal of her. Agreeing to her proposal, the tiger waited for her to return. In the meantime, the cow went to her master, a brahmana, and to her calf and told them what had happened. When they heard her pitiful story, they volunteered themselves to go in her place as the tiger's meal. Bahula declined this selfless offer, but in the end, all three, cow, calf, and brahmana, returned to offer themselves to the tiger, who was delighted by the exceedingly favorable turn of events. While the tiger contemplated which victim to eat first, who should appear but Lord Krishna, the presiding deity of Dharma and the guardian of all the residents of Raj. Holding his chakra in one hand, Krishna assured the tiger of everlasting fame if he were to show leniency to the cow and its kin for their truthful and honorable conduct. The tiger released Bahula from her promise, and the calf and brahmana rejoiced on their mother being spared and felt blessed by Lord Krishna's merciful intervention. Being so pleased with Bahula's truthfulness and integrity, Krishna named the forest after her, Bahulavan, and blessed her to become his consort. Thus, in her next birth, Bahula became one of Krishna's wives. This day was also named after her, Bahulastami. Bahulavan is considered by some Vaishnavas as the most sacred forest of all, for it includes the most sacred place of all, Sri Radhakund. Okay, so I guess now we'll, this is a segue into Radhakund. So in Bahulavan, which we just heard about, which is considered by some to be the most sacred of all the forests of Vrindavan because it has Radhakund. So continue reading. Srila Rupa Goswami writes in his Upadeshamrita the following verse, which confirms the superiority of Radhakund above any other place. Quote, the holy place known as Mathura is spiritually superior to Vaikuntha, the transcendental world, because the Lord appeared there. Superior to Mathura Puri is the transcendental forest of Vrindavan because of Krishna's Rasa Leela pastimes, and superior to the forest of Vrindavan is Govardhan Hill, for it was raised by a divine hand of Sri Krishna and was the site of his various loving pastimes. And above all, the super excellent Sri Radhakund stands supreme, for it is flooded with the ambrosial nectarian prema of the Lord of Gokula, Sri Krishna. So that's a glorification of Radhakund, and I'll quickly narrate this pastime. Okay. So the origin of Radhakund. After killing a bull named Aristasura, Krishna approached Radharani to engage in loving affairs. However, she rebuked him, stating that he was impure because of committing the sin of killing a bull, the symbol of religion. She suggested that to counteract this sin, he should bathe in all the sacred rivers. Krishna, being eager to engage in loving affairs with Srimati Radharani, immediately shoved his lotus feet into the ground, making a large hole, and called all the sacred rivers to enter into it. They appeared before him and formed Shamakund. After bathing, Krishna stated that he had become pure by bathing in Shamakund, but that the gopis had become impure, having sided with a demon, even though he appeared in the form of a bull. Radharani, along with some of her gopi friends, broke their bangles and dug a hole with the broken pieces. But there was no water, so Krishna laughed. The gopis then formed a line to the Manasi Ganga and started to fill the hole with water that was passed from one gopi to another. At that time, all the sacred rivers again arrived in person and requested permission to enter into Radharani's kund, which they did after receiving Radharani's blessings. Jai Shri Radha Kund ki Jai. And yeah, so very important place, Radha Kund. I just want to pull up another verse about Radha Kund. And yeah, on that website also it said how the devotees generally they go and bathe at midnight in Radha Kund, especially the place where Janava Mata would bathe. Okay. All right, so there's these two nice verses in the Nectar of Instruction. We just heard one, how Radha Kund is the is more superior than Vaikuntha, Mathura, Govardhan Hill. Of course, these places are the most superior, but even superior to them is Radha Kund. And then text 10 of Nectar of Instruction states, in the Shastras it is said that of all types of fruited workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life is favored by the Supreme Lord Hari. Out of many such people who are advanced in knowledge, jnanis, one who is practically liberated by virtue of his knowledge may take to devotional service. He is superior to others. However, one who has actually attained prema, pure love of Krishna, is superior to him. The gopis are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy. Among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most dear to Krishna. Her kund, lake, is as profoundly dear to Lord Krishna as this most beloved of the gopis. Who then will not reside at Radha Kund and in a spiritual body surcharged with ecstatic devotional feelings, apakrita bhava, render loving service unto the divine couple Shri Shri Radha Govinda, who perform their Astakaliya Leela, their eightfold daily pastimes. Indeed, those who execute devotional service on the banks of Radha Kund are the most fortunate people in the universe. And then the next text. Of the many objects of favorable delight, and of all the lovable damsels of Rajabhumi, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most treasured object of Krishna's love, and in every respect her divine kund is described by great sages as similarly dear to him. Undoubtedly, Radha Kund is very rarely attained, even by great devotees. Therefore, it is even more difficult for ordinary devotees to attain. If one simply bathes once in those holy waters, one's pure love of Krishna is fully aroused. Jai. Shri Radha Kun ki Jai. Yeah, so it seems like, yeah, I mean, Radha Kun is non-different from Radharani, who is Krishna's most dear object. And yeah, so one should definitely take the opportunity, if one is able to visit such a holy place and take a bath. Of course, I've heard that under the instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that yeah, best for devotees not to fully jump in. Anyways, that's what I heard. Generally, when we go there, we just sprinkle it on our head. But I don't want to say that's completely authoritative, because I'm starting to doubt myself whether Bhaktisiddhanta actually said that. Okay. So, yeah, very special day, one of the many very auspicious days in the month of Kartik. And speaking of auspicious activity, as the Bhagavatam itself tells us, that hearing about the pastimes and activities of the Lord are very auspicious. So we'll continue with our reading from the Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29. Today's verse is 58. Karman yarapateyena puman iha vihayatam amutranyena dehena jutani sayad ashnute. Word for word, karmani, fruit of activities, arabhate, begins to perform, yena, by which, human, the living entity, iha, in this life, vihaya, giving up, tam, that, amutra, in the next life, anyena, another, dehena, by a body, justani, the results, sahi, ya, that, asnute, enjoys. Translation. The results of whatever a living entity does in this life are enjoyed in the next life. Okay, I'll read that again. The results of whatever a living entity does in this life are enjoyed in the next life. Okay. Purport. A person generally does not know how one body is linked with another body. However, it is possible that one suffers. However, it is possible that one suffers or enjoys the results of activities in this body, in yet another body in the next life. This is maybe they're lacking some punctuation, but somehow that, let me read that sentence again. However, how is it possible that one suffers or enjoys the results of activities in this body, in yet another body in the next life? How is it possible that one suffers or enjoys the results of activities in this body, in yet another body in the next life? This is a question the king wants Narada Muni to answer. how one may have a human body in this life and not have a human body in the next. Even great philosophers and scientists cannot account for the transfer of karma from one body to another. As we've experienced, every individual soul has an individual body, and one person's activities or one's body's activities are not enjoyed or suffered by another body or another person. The question of how the activities of one body are suffered, the question is how the activities of one body are suffered or enjoyed in the next. Okay. Yeah, okay, just, I don't think they made any punctuation errors. I think it's just my lack of being able to read. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shivta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Sa Shri Rupam Sagrajatan Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Scha Vanchakal Patarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation repeated. The result of whatever a living entity does in this life are enjoyed in the next life. Okay, so as it's said in the purport here, that, yeah, generally certain personalities, so-called philosophers and scientists, cannot account for the transfer of karma from one body to another. So, yeah, and a few verses in the Bhagavad Gita that confirm this. Ukramantam, okay, good thing I have it here. Ukramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunan vita adistaya manaschaiva vishayan upasevate vimuda nanupa. Yeah, okay, vimuda nanupasyanti. What the translation is, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys by the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. And then the next verse states how the endeavoring transcendentalists can see all this, but those who are not situated in self-realization cannot see all this, although they may try. So, yeah, we just based on this point about kind of certain personalities, even though being so intelligent, somehow ignore these facts, are not able to kind of fully embrace them. Yeah, there's of course, I believe it's quoted reference in the Science of Self-Realization. This scholar professor at the University of Virginia, Ian Stevenson, who he did lots of studies on reincarnation. So he found, what was it, 2,400 cases where people were actually able to remember their past lives, or children were actually able to kind of recount like certain things of their past life. And in 1,200 of those cases, roughly, about half, the kids actually gave enough information where, Ian Stevenson was actually able to go to the place and verify these things. So there's, there's another author of many books more recently, who's written many books on reincarnation, and he recounts how Ian Stevenson, these people Ian Stevenson would go to these places, and the kid would actually be able to tell who each family member was, and would be able to tell like certain secrets about the family and whatnot. So, and apparently, Ian Stevenson was actually a very meticulous researcher. Professor, University of Virginia, and had a background in biochemistry. So it was a very legitimate research that was done. And he just very meticulously graphed everything out. And as I heard recently, Holiness Dave Mitra Maharaj was saying that, even though that scientists are actually not able to refute these things, but somehow or other, they don't pay so much attention to them. And this was also, stated by this more contemporary Ian Stevenson, who's written many books, and he was saying that some of his colleagues, even though they are doctors and smart people, somehow they just kind of ignore, they don't actually pay much attention to these studies for whatever reason. He didn't elaborate, he just said that. But religious people, especially, they are kind of averse to these studies and paying too much attention to them, because it kind of goes against some of the things, some of the teachings that they propagate. But this guy, I think his name, Walter Hurwitz, something like that, he was saying the reason he's so inspired to study all these things is because if people were to actually realize these things, that I might be I might be like a Shia Muslim in this life, but then in the next life it might be a whatever Sunni Muslim, whatever rival group to whatever rival Muslim, or I might be a Jew in this life, but in the next life I might I might be a Muslim. Then, so in other words, these people who are fighting, if one realizes that in the next life I could actually be born in as one of the so-called opposing forces, then actually there could be true peace. So very interesting kind of observation on his part that, yeah, by people getting acquainted with this knowledge and actually like taking to heart these findings, there could be so much peace in the world. So I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, so on this point, yeah, I mean, our whole process is actually this. It's yeah, it's becoming destination consciousness. What is our well, what is ultimately the human life meant for? It's actually meant for. It's said that in the fourth canto there's a verse that states how in the human form of life, it's actually the platform by which one can either be elevated or degraded. So our whole kind of prison sentence in this material world can actually be ended in the human form of life. And just like, because yeah, there's a scheme to this world. It's like if you go to an elementary school, you can see how, okay, there's different grades. You know, someone comes in a kindergarten and they progress. Well, hopefully they progress. Sometimes they get retained, you know, a certain grade and aren't able to advance to the next grade. But generally that, you know, they come in small people, then they get bigger and bigger and whatever, go through different grades. And at fifth grade, you know, okay, now they're gonna not only transfer to a higher grade, but transfer to a different school like that. So it's a system, you know, that kind of, yeah. So similarly, this material world is also, it's also like that. It's a systematic way to reform us and yeah. And what are we learning here? Well, ultimately, yeah, Bahunam Janmanamante, Gyanavamam Prapadere Vasudeva Savamiti Samahama Sudurlabha. After, you know, many thousands of births, the wise person comes to realize that Krishna Vasudeva is all in all. So that's the lesson that we're supposed to learn. And yeah, like I was saying, this whole material world it's a system. So yeah, one is meant to progress like that. So, and that's why there are so many different species of life like that. There's different, you know, Darwin had it partially right in that there is evolution, but it's actually not that one species gradually evolves to another, but there are these different species and your consciousness, your soul kind of like progresses through the different species. So yeah, this is a kind of a fundamental point of our philosophy, which is actually really the kind of, we call it philosophy, but it's reality. This is the fundamental principles of what is reality, and yeah, it's very well, as it's saying here, that the results of whatever living entity does in this life are enjoyed in the next life. So yeah, generally a lot of people do know this, like, you know, lots of, pretty much all the religions in India, except for, you know, the more modern infiltration of like Abrahamic religions. But generally this idea of reincarnation is accepted. So many people, they engage in Vedic ritualistic processes because they know, okay, in the next life, if if I do so much in this life, then I will actually be elevated. So for us, yeah, so for us, we're ultimately, yeah, we're trying to attain the highest destination, the spiritual world. As the Bhagavad Gita says that, yeah, the unmanifested realm, upon which, having attained, then one never has to come back. So that's our ultimate destination. And yeah, that means in this life we have to actually become qualified for that. Just like, yeah, if anyone is preparing to go to a certain school, okay, you have to prepare yourself so you have the qualifications to attain that place. And we can see, yeah, that in this life we're meant to reform, become purified, to be eligible to enter that place. And because ultimately Krishna only wants kind of the best people there. So there's a nice verse just speaking about how one actually, one purifies themselves. And this is, I believe, Rupa Goswami from the Nectar of Devotion. Yata kanchanatam yati kamsyam rasa vidanata tata diksha vidanena dvijatvam jayate ninam. Quote, as bell metal, sorry, I can't read my handwriting. Okay, yeah, there you go. As bell metal, when mixed with mercury, is transformed into gold, a person, even though not gold and pure, can be transformed into a Brahmana or Dvija simply by the initiation process. So in other words, yeah, even though one might take birth kind of, well, actually, none of us, at least I don't think there's anyone on this call here, who took birth in like a pure Brahmin family where, all the proper samskars were performed and this and that. But by the process, yeah, as this verse says, by the process of initiation, one can actually transform oneself into a Brahmana. And of course, becoming Brahmana is the preliminary qualification for becoming a Vaishnava. Because the different qualities of like the different varnas, each varna has Sudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Brahmana has certain qualifications. And it's interesting because the qualifications of the Brahmana are actually very much based on personal qualities and not so much on like external things like, yeah, the Sudra, he serves the master and like that has certain characteristics. But yeah, it's interesting. The Brahmana it's more based on the kind of internal qualities. Peacefulness, having knowledge, knowledge and realized knowledge, performing austerities like that, as we hear in the Bhagavad Gita. So actually you can see how, yeah, it's actually possible for anyone to obtain these qualities by the reformatory process. And you can see why these qualities are actually required for one to become a Vaishnava. Like it's stated of Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that, okay, Arjuna, he was lamenting, not wanting to kill the other side. And yeah, Prabhupada says how actually this shows the qualities of a Vaishnava. So yeah, so so we can see, yeah, so in this life, yeah, it's very important that we kind of do develop these qualities. And there was a very nice family visiting us this weekend, and the mom is initiated, and the two kids were like 4th grade and 8th grade. And I was sitting down talking to them. They were just so smart. I was just amazed. Really, really like very intelligent kids. And then the mom told me later that, yeah, they chant, the younger one chants 10 rounds a day and the older one chants 16 rounds. But she was saying how, still they're not chanting so attentively, and they're often distracted. And she was just like very intensely looked at me and she said, they should be serious that in this life they go back to Godhead. Not that they have to come back, in this life they should go back to Godhead. So yeah, it was very intense. And she was serious, and she really wanted her kids to also kind of imbibe that seriousness. And yeah, to an extent to a big extent they had, chanting so many rounds as little kids. So yeah, this should also be our determination, is that, okay, somehow or other I've come in contact with this process. I come from very sinful background, but somehow or other I've come in contact with this process, and the results, what we read and stuff is just, we read how glorious this process is, and the benefits of that one receives upon its completion. Attaining one's natural swarup, natural identity as eternal, blissful, all-knowledgeable, loving associate of the most attractive personality. So yeah, one should be very sincere and serious to actually take to this process wholeheartedly. And it helps. It definitely helps. Having the knowledge helps. So continuously being reminded of how rare this opportunity is and how glorious it is very encouraging and very important for maintaining our determination. Okay, Hare Krishna. I'll stop there, and I think we're out of time. So thank you all for tuning in. Granta Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Radhakund ki jai, Bahulastami ki jai, our cow Bahula ki jai, who is now the surrogate mother of our baby bull. So thank you, Bahula, for that service. You ki jai. Okay, and now we'll have Guru Puja. Thank you, devotees. Hari Bol.